Good morning. I'd like to call to order our Used Automotive Recyclers Advisory Board meeting. First thing we'll do is roll call. Let Pamela do our roll call.
Good morning. Chad Torbina,
Here.
Brian Burgess,
Here.
Kayleen Thomas,
Here.
Byron Farrell,
Here.
Bruce Ormond.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. I do want to remind everybody this meeting is being recorded, so it's right to turn your phones to vibrate. We'll go ahead and dive into the training for advisory board meeting members. I believe Mark will come up to talk about that.
Morning, board members. For the record, I am Mark Gladney with the Office of General Counsel. I'm here with Charles Johnson to give a brief training session on the Texas Open Meetings Act, the Public Information Act, and applicable sections of the Administrative Procedures Act as it relates to rulemaking. If you have any questions or suggestions, please contact me after the meeting with the office will be happy to assist you on any questions or suggestions that you may have after the presentation. You will also find some additional information on the subject matter in your briefing packets. This is certainly not going to be an exhaustive analysis of the legislation. If we were to do that, it could take hours and we want to be here for that. But we've included some helpful information and best practice points intended to assist you in the performance of your duties. I'm going to go over here to the
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, as I stated, the training today is going to cover the Texas Open Meetings Act, the Administrative Procedures Act, and the Public Information Act. Now, the purpose of the Texas Open Meetings Act is to ensure open and transparent government. And you'll also find it in the Government Code in Chapter 551. Now, you're going to hear the words open and transparent government probably again. This is a recurring theme related to all of the legislation that we're going to be talking about today. A meeting under the Act must meet these requirements. The advisory board must give written notice of the day, hour, place, and subject matter of each meeting held. The notice is going to be posted at least 7 days prior to each meeting, and TDLR must provide notice of the meeting to the Secretary of State, who will post it on the internet, and TDLR will also post the notice of the public meeting on its website. Now, quorum is required for the board to be able to take any official action. And a quorum of this particular advisory board is going to be 3 out of 5 members. Now, if you don't happen to have a quorum, if there's just 2 of you here, you can still hold the meeting, however, you can't take any official action. Now, the advisory board may meet to discuss public business or policy that is within your supervision or control, and may only take formal action on matters of the same. So, you can't necessarily have a public meeting to discuss laser hair removal or podiatry or something of that nature, because that's not within your supervision or control. If a quorum of the body is present at a social function, this is going to deal with if you happen to be out socially. Are these considered meetings? Now, if you're at a social function that's unrelated to public business that's conducted by this board, the gathering is only subject to the Open Meetings Act if the members engage in a discussion about official business over which they have supervision or control. Now, the board is also not engaging in formal meetings like you have right now if there is a conversation amongst the members that's purely incidental to the social gathering. So, if you're just having, conversations at a gathering, a party. If it's just incidental, it's not specific about the issues over which you have supervision or control, it's not considered a meeting. Okay. What about conventions, conferences, and workshops? If board members can attend a convention, a conference, or a workshop, and a quorum is present, they are not engaging in a meeting, as long as the conversation is about public business or public policy and is incidental to the event, and no formal action is taken. So you have to have both those things. Okay. A good practice point might be just to try your very best to avoid such conversations to begin with. It's kind of easier to just, for everybody involved to stay out of those kind of situations. Okay, and here are some key points to remember. Always be aware of your surroundings. Be aware of any situation occurring outside of a noticed board meeting in which a quorum of you are present. Don't engage in any specific substantive conversations related to board business or policy when a quorum is present and you're outside a normally scheduled meeting. And beware of the walking quorum. It's kind of apropos for the Halloween period of time. Walking quorum or the traveling quorum is a situation where less than a quorum of board members discuss official business through any means, telephone, email, letter, carrier pigeon, whatever, and communicate these discussions to other board members. Now, while less than a quorum participates in the first conversation, subsequent conversations with other board members will result in a quorum discussing official business outside of a public meeting. So this one is pretty important because it happens a lot in boards. I've been on boards myself. I've been on city council once, and there is a natural, I don't know what you'd call it, just urge to kind of talk about things outside of a normally scheduled meeting. You really need to stay away from that. A good example of that would be board member A talks to board member B about a rulemaking, over the phone, exchange emails. Board member A's done some research about certain aspects of a rulemaking, and sends all that information, has a discussion with board member B. Okay, so those two have a conversation. Okay, well then board member B talks about what they talked about with board member C. Board member C's like, wow, that's pretty interesting, okay? So then board member C talks to D, and board member D talks to E. Well, at that point, you've got a walking quorum. Everybody knew what the first two people were talking about by virtue of it just traveling along the grapevine. Now, that would be a violation of the Open Meetings Act, so we really would recommend that you avoid situations where a walking or a traveling quorum could come about. Official business should be done in a normally noticed meeting. Yeah, so that's what a walking quorum would be. Okay, as we said, walking quorums can occur during conference calls, video conferences, hallway discussions, emails, text messages. You can even have it with Facebook and Twitter. So, again, be very careful about this. It's a very easy trap to fall into. And again, this would be a violation of the Open Meetings Act if you engage in this type of activity. Best practices to avoid a walking quorum. Board members should not meet in small groups, discuss board or committee business, and then communicate those discussions to other members. Or send emails or text messages to a quorum of the board regarding official business, even if each email is addressed and sent to each board member individually. They should not ask a quorum of members, even on an individual basis, for feedback or comments on advisory board business outside of a public meeting. This is also called polling, which you basically just, soliciting, how is somebody going to vote on a particular issue. Guidelines for open sessions. A board is limited to discussing the specific items on the agenda. So think of the agenda is basically your roadmap and your boundaries. So what is contained on the agenda is what you're going to talk about. We're certainly going to try to strive to keep you on topic, and you might get a little friendly nudge from us if you do start to stray off topic. And if it's an issue that's of real importance to you, we can certainly set it for a future board meeting and make it an agenda item, and you can talk about it to your heart's content. So the best thing here, stick to the agenda. This is your roadmap, your guide map, everything. During public comment period, members of the public are given an opportunity to speak, and the board may set reasonable limits for this portion. So we do have a public comment section here, agenda item number E. The board is free to set how much or how little amount of time that they want to allow a member of the public to discuss an item. I've heard all sorts of different time limits, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever, but it's entirely up to you. A member of the public or a member of the board may raise a subject that has not been included in the notice for the meeting, but any discussion of the subject must be limited to a proposal to place the subject on the agenda for a future meeting. So that's what I just talked about. Guidelines for open sessions, our best practices. To avoid violating the act on the basis of insufficient notice, the board members should specifically identify items for agenda and communicate those items to TDLR staff. Limit discussions to the specific agenda items contained in the posting filed with the Secretary of State, as we talked about previously. Avoid wandering off into other issues that are outside the roadmap of the agenda, because they haven't been noticed to the public. And not respond to or discuss issues that are raised during public comment but are not on the agenda. So you might have someone who comes in here from the public who wants to discuss something during public comment, and you really want to respond to it. It might get your temperature rising, or it might just be an interesting subject that you really want to respond to. If it's not on the agenda, you can't respond to it. We can certainly put it on tap for a future agenda item for full discussion. Okay, what would any law be without some kind of penalty attached to it? Okay, so penalties associated with Meeting Act violations. There are civil remedies, so any interested person, including the media, may petition courts to stop actions that are taken by this board in violation of the Open Meetings Act. So you could take a formal action on an item that was in violation of the act, but which would make it voidable. It would be void on its face. But if they went into court, say a district court, and asked for injunctive relief, and proved up that the board acted outside of its either authority or acted in such a manner that was in violation of the Open Meeting Act, then yes, they could go to a district court, get it prove it to a district court judge and get an injunction and stop whatever formal action or formal decision that you all had made previously. So that's a civil remedy. And there are also criminal penalties attached to it as well. Board members who knowingly conspire to circumvent the open meetings law by meeting in numbers less than a quorum to secretly deliberate are subject to misdemeanor criminal penalties. So the key word here is knowingly. Okay? The penalties are fined from $100 to $500 or confinement in the county jail for 1 to 6 months or both. Okay? So this kind of shows you that the legislature takes it very seriously. So I know that we're not going to have any such issues here, so it's something we can feel pretty confident about. Okay. Avoid communications that involve a quorum of board members about official business outside of a properly noticed public meeting. And during open meetings, confine discussion to items specifically posted on the agenda. There's probably about the third or fourth time that this has been mentioned, but we're mentioning it a number of times because it is so incredibly important. Okay, now we're on to the Administrative Procedures Act. And here's the purpose of the Administrative Procedures Act, establishing minimum standards of uniform practice and procedure for state agencies, and provide public participation and transparency during the rulemaking process. So a discussion about the APA in this context will be strictly about administrative rulemaking. APA covers a whole range of other things as well, but for the purposes of this discussion, we're just talking about the rulemaking process. Okay. Definition of a rule. A rule is simply a statement made by a state agency that implements, interprets, prescribes law or policy, or describes the procedure or practice requirements of a state agency. So the legislature passes a statute. There are some situations in which the statute needs to be interpreted, and it's up to the state agency to get together and create laws, create rules. A lot of times it's done cooperatively with stakeholders. I find that's usually the best way to go about doing rulemaking. And what they do is they take the law and they create a rule that's going to interpret what does that law mean. Right? So the rule certainly has to basically properly interpret or implement whatever the statute wants to do. Otherwise, you could have a situation where the rule may be invalid because it doesn't properly either implement or interpret the law, and somebody could easily go into court and make that argument, and then the rule could be declared invalid, and you have to start all over again. A rule must always include amendments or repeal of prior rules, if any, and a rule does not solely relate to internal management or organization of a state agency. As far as starting a rulemaking, any interested person may petition for the adoption of a rule. And an interested person would be either a Texas resident, a business entity within the state governmental subdivision, like the advisory board, a public or private organization that is not a state agency but is located in Texas. Okay, basically here's a flow chart for how a rule moves through the process. It's sort of like I guess it's the roadmap or the birth of a rule. Someone comes up with an idea, they draft the rules and send them to you. The proposed rules are filed with the Texas Register, so the general public gets notice as to what is going on. Again, that's keeping with the purpose of the legislation of open and transparent government. Public has 30 days to comment on the proposed rules. Commission will review the rule filing and comments, and if they agree with it, adopt the rule. Advisory board reviews the comments and recommends, went backwards, sorry. Let's go back over here. 30 days to comment on the rule, the proposed rules. Then the general counsel reviews the comments and and recommends rule changes. Advisory board reviews the comments and recommends to the commission. Then the commission reviews the rule filing comments and adopts the rule. Then the adoption is filed with the Texas Register, and the rules become effective 20 days after the filing with the Texas Register. Gotta watch my ears. Okay. We have a rule review process every 4 years. Rules are reviewed, that's a requirement. So notice of intent to review is filed. The public has 30 days, again, to comment on, what we're reviewing. Again, open and transparent government. Arrow down. General counsel reviews the comments and makes a recommendation to the commission. Commission reviews the rule filing and comments and may re-adopt the rule. The advisory board will be presented with any comments and may recommend changes to the commission. Okay? So that's the rule review process that's done every 4 years. Okay, now we're on to the Public Information Act. It's also known as the Open Records Act. And this is basically the enabling statute that's related to the Public Information Act. And I'll direct your attention to the bold portions. Government is the servant. It is a policy of the state that each person is entitled, unless otherwise expressly provided by law, and at all times to complete information about the affairs of government and the official acts of public officials and employees. People insist on remaining informed. Again, open and transparent government. We talked about that at the very beginning. I think I've mentioned it 3 or 4 times since that. All this legislation ties together. The PIA, the portion we talked about rulemaking for the APA, and the Open Meetings Act. All that ties together with open and transparent government. Okay. The Open Records Act makes all documents, records, and other information relating to official business open to the public. There are some exceptions. We won't necessarily get into those right now because there's a whole bunch of them, and a lot of them don't necessarily apply to what this particular board does, but we'll talk about a few. Public information includes any, and you notice that any is underlined. Electronic communication created, transmitted, received, or maintained on any device if it is in connection with official business. And this includes your private tablets and your cell phones and anything else that you have that's electronic that is yours, not necessarily issued by us. So be very careful about doing official business on your own devices. Yeah. Somebody makes a open records request and the person or persons know that you're doing official business on your own devices, they can go into court and they can require the release of that information that's off your personal devices. So be very careful about how you use your personal devices for official business. Okay, if we receive a public information request, or if you do, please forward it as soon as possible to the Office of General Counsel. Response time is approximately 10 days after we receive the request. We cannot ask anyone why they want the record, only for clarifications. Some exemptions to disclosure, certain information will be redacted from open records like date of birth, email, certain educational documents, certainly medical information, that will be exempted from disclosure as well. And as I said, there's a number of other things that are exempted from disclosure, but we don't need to get into that at this particular time. Okay, well that's basically about it. Again, if you all have any questions, please feel free to get in contact with myself or the Office of General Counsel. We'd be more than happy to answer any questions you have, offer any assistance that you may need in this matter. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mark. The next item on our agenda is the line item D, approval of minutes from our last minute. I don't believe we had any changes, so I'll move to a motion on the minutes. If I can get a second on that. Second. Thank you. All in favor say aye. Aye. Good on minutes. Next, line item on the agenda is E, public comment. I don't believe we had anything, but if anybody has anything now, public comment. They wish to address the advisory board. Okay. We'll move on to F on our agenda. That's gonna be executive office updates, so I'll let, I believe it's Nick.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman and members, thank you for being here, and thank you for your service to our state. I'm Nick Boynes, TDOR, here to bring you our executive office report. As you may know, over the last year, we've had some personnel changes around the agency. Our longtime executive director, Bill Coots, retired last fall, and longtime deputy executive director, Brian Francis, was promoted to executive director. And because of the growing workload around TDLR, Brian hired a deputy executive director and a chief of staff. Our new deputy executive director is Carla James, and she's responsible for operations and regulatory services. And I joined TDLR as chief of staff and handled external services. As you can imagine, over the last few months, a major focus has been on the 85th session of the Texas legislature. And it was a busy one, arguably the busiest one TDLR has ever had. State, House, and Senate convened in January and met through Memorial Day, and came back during the summer and had a 30-day special session. During the regular session, more than 6,500 total bills were filed. TDLR staff tracked a total of 341 bills. 130 were directly related to current TDLR programs, 20 dealt with new or transfer programs, and 191 bills that, if enacted, would have affected agency operations. TDLR staff worked hard as a team, analyzing and monitoring the bills and providing feedback and resource testimony. TDLR staff attended 65 hearings before 20 different House and Senate committees. No bill affecting this program passed. I want to take this opportunity to thank our government relations group of folks who were at the core of these efforts. With us today we have Eric Beverly, and Michael Kelly was partners with Eric during the session, and Michael retired at the end of August. Replacing him was Steve Bruno. We brought Steve back. You may remember him. He was most recently the chief clerk on the House Ways and Means Committee. And also want to include Mary Winston, Colleen Tran, and others who had a big hand and formed the nucleus of our GR efforts this past session. Now that lawmakers have gone home, so to speak, our staff is busy preparing to implement the bills that were passed during the 85th, and all TDR divisions are involved as we develop the rules, communicate to stakeholders, appoint and prep advisory boards, hire additional staff, deal with education exams, IT programs, and more. If interested, you can go on our website, tdlr.texas.gov, and click on the capital picture there, and it'll take you to our legislative page, and you can see by program the various bills that passed and how they affect some of our programs. Most recently, TDLR staff has been working hard to help our licensees and small business owners recover from the aftermath of Hurricane Harvey. Texans helping Texans, as we like to call it. The entire TDLR staff should be commended for their efforts. Everyone's been involved. We've been in coordination with the governor's office and their Rebuild Texas efforts, and we've been implementing procedures for all eligible licensees in the affected areas to help them recover, return to work as quickly as possible. We started several days before the storm hit the Texas coast, and TDLR staff has extended license expiration dates, waived late fees and license replacement fees, waived CE requirements, and extended grace periods for expired licenses for those in the affected areas. It all began with our tow program as we worked to allow out-of-state towers to come in to help our in-state towers clear flooded and abandoned vehicles off roads. and parking areas. It moved on from there to easing regulations on vehicle storage facilities, to allow easier transport to salvage yards, and on and on. We'll keep working hard to remove the burden of red tape and help Texans rebuild. Again, on our website, you can go and hit on our Harvey recovery page and see some of the other efforts that we've done in this area to help Texans in those affected areas. Also, like to take this opportunity to promote our social media accounts. Please follow us on Facebook, like us on Twitter, whatever, if you're into that, to keep up with various TDLR news and events. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Appreciate it. We also feel the effects of the Harvey and all the storms in our industry, so we're all along the lines as well. The next thing we are on track for on our agenda will be the board discussion of House Bill 3131. Obviously, it's a big topic, and I think Charles.
Mary Winston, TDLR, actually, Chair. We have had the executive report, and we see Todd walking back and forth because next we have on the agenda the compliance report.
Okay, perfect.
Good morning, I'm Todd Forrester with the Compliance Division here at TDLR, Program Specialist for APR, Towing and Vehicle Storage Facilities. We have had, in April, myself, Latasha Poland, and Robin Glaston with the Enforcement Division conducted a training for the Field Operations Division. The training covered the APR laws and rules and the forms of evidence that enforcement will need in order to prosecute a case. That was done with their trainers, and they could go out in the field and train the inspectors. Compliance is continuing to develop internal policies and procedures to ensure continuity with the program in the future, just to make sure everything runs smooth. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Next will be our Enforcement Division.
Board members, good morning. My name is Michael Sheriff. I'm one of the prosecutors working the Used Automotive Parts Recycling Program. Before I get started, however, I wanted to introduce you to Jessica Hurtado. She's one of the prosecutors who just began with our program this week, and she's going to be taking over automotive recycling parts. So I wanted to introduce you, and I think you're going to be working with her a lot. She brings a wealth of experience to the department, a lot of creative ideas, and I think the kind of energy that this program is going to be able to use moving into the future is some of the plans you have. What I wanted to do very quickly was go over the sort of representative sample of the cases that we've seen come across our desks, and then talk with you briefly about statistics. We generate about 2% of the revenues from penalties, of all of TDLR penalties, and I think that that's a very good sign that we have pretty good compliance in the automotive recycling parts programs. And a lot of this has to do with requirements that people have licenses and that businesses be licensed, because then they get the training that Todd was talking about and are able to run their business as they want in compliance with the law. The cases that are on the sheet are pretty good cross-sample of where we find the violations. The facility, the business itself was not licensed, the employee is not licensed, and there's a lack of legally required insurance. That makes up a lot of the cases, and we take each of those very seriously, especially the insurance, because this is an ultra-hazardous workplace that people are in. And as I mentioned, having the license ensures that they have the training and are available to get the training from Todd so that they can run business that's in compliance with the law. Another frequent violation, I'd say about 30% of our cases, has to do with the maintenance of records. And again, this is real important to make sure that when parts come in, they come in legally. When they go out legally, they can be traced and get away from some of the uses of the past with the history of the chop shops. We rely upon that, I say, that trinity, that three-legged stool of licensure, insurance, and maintenance of good records to make sure that the shops are in compliance with the law. And, you know, compared to the other programs I run, which is VSF, the vehicle storage facilities, and the tow operations, we have a very low level of infractions that come forward. And I think that's not just because the population is lower, but because we have higher compliance. I think that all of you get this listing of the cases that I prepared. So that if you had any questions about them, I'm happy to answer the specifics about those cases because they are representative of what we've
Supposed to
seen.
get a paper form, or are they on the?
They're probably on your electronic agenda.
Okay.
And then they had about 6 cases with just a description of what the violation was, what the penalty was. Let me run very briefly over the figures so that we look at the key statistics combined.
And these are just visits, are these more?
These are all inspections.
Okay.
That's how the majority of our, that's how all of the violations are found. Either the inspection resulted from a complaint or just a periodic inspection. A lot of times we work very closely with law enforcement and they'll ask for an inspector to go out there. But this is not like tow, we have off-site violations. So you've got our statistics, the failure to maintain records, failure to maintain insurance, and failure to employ licensed employees are our biggest violations. I think that we're going to continue to see a decrease in the percentage of cases represented by automotive parts recycling as a whole of TDR cases. And again, that's because I think there's an effort to maintain compliance with the law. That's pretty much an overview of what we do. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Well, great. I will say goodbye now, and then in the future you get to work with Jessica.
I appreciate it.
Thank you
Thank you,
very much.
Jessica. Next will be our Field Operations Division.
Good morning. My name is Tom McGuffero. I'm the Director of Field Operations. And our division are the folks who go out and perform the periodic inspections. We do this for a number of facilities, but also, of course, use auto parts recycler companies. Our report starts with the most common violations, and these are the most common ones found during the inspections that we perform. Just to give you an idea of the types of violations that are being written overall for the entire period of time. This is actually referring to the third quarter of the last fiscal year. And we'll, go through that every quarter and update those violations to make sure we're keeping track in case we see something really odd out there. We want to be able to try to address it. The next is our division projects. We are working on a mobile, well, since you guys met, we have fully implemented a route optimization program for our inspectors, which means that we have a computer program that will consider all of the inspections that are due across all of the programs, including used auto parts recyclers, but it's tow, VSF, barbers, cosmetology. It also considers where the inspectors are located. They start out from their home, and then it provides the most efficient route for them to do the most important inspections each day. So it's just a way to try to make sure that we are using our resources as wisely as we can. Okay. Another effort on our part to use more technology is a mobile inspection, and that means an electronic inspection. The inspectors have iPad minis, and we are about to implement the tow mobile inspection so that they'll be able to be on site, complete the inspection, and transfer the data electronically into our database. This will save them having to go back to their desk and type that information into the database. And We are about to go live. In fact, we are not doing any other inspections in the old method. It's just a matter of flipping the switch. We're working on a few technical issues with our IT folks, but that's been a big project for us. And once we complete the tow mobile inspection, we're gonna go on to work on others. I'm not sure when we're gonna get to UAPR, because we have several to do, but it'll be in the queue to also happen that way in the future. Also, I want to mention that, or give a shout out to our Houston staff, because they were also affected during the hurricane and the aftermath of Hurricane Harvey. I just want to commend them publicly for looking out for each other during that time, but also looking out for licensees. And I want to point out that we have suspended inspections. We started right after the hurricane in Houston. We suspended all inspections until this Monday. But we are still holding off on towing, VSF, and used auto parts recycler inspections at this time in the affected areas, because we know that there's just so much going on, and they're trying to deal with all of those damaged vehicles, and we feel like these industries need us to kind of be out of the way until they get a better handle on everything that's going on. We're gonna review that about every 2 weeks and decide when it's time to start back in those affected areas. Also, we have updates since we submitted this report on our personnel. We have, since we submitted the data for this report, hired 4 inspectors, and we are about to post for 3 more. The inspectors we hired, though, 2 are gonna be based in Houston, 1 is in Corpus, and the other is in the DFW area. And we are gonna post, just in case anybody's listening or knows somebody who wants to be an inspector. We have a position coming open in Tarrant County, Collin County, and Dallas County. Those should be posted and up on our website probably this week. And finally, we have our statistics showing the inspections that we've done in the used auto parts recycler program. And does anybody have any questions, or?
How many total inspectors will that be total?
Oh, that's gonna get us at 29 inspectors throughout the state. And just to mind you, we are going to, we have to, of course, spread our work around, you know. So we're incorporating, they may, on that Moby route, that route optimization program, they may go from, you know, they may start out with a cosmetology salon, and the next thing that comes up on their list could be a used auto parts recycler. We try to do the salons first, and then the used auto parts recyclers second. But yeah, it's incorporated into all of the work that we do.
The inspection statistics and trends, can you clarify what that's telling us there?
Sure. If you look on your list, we've got numbers from fiscal year 2016 as compared to numbers for fiscal year 2017. So it's just broken down by month and then by quarter.
Is that how many inspections were performed in those months of quarters?
That's correct, and that total is everything at the bottom there where it says year to date. That's the total for FY16 and then FY17.
Okay, I thought so, I just want to make sure that's.
Sure.
And that's for everything that TR inspects, not just.
No, oh gosh, no.
Okay. I was
Yeah.
confused.
No, this is just for used auto parts recycler. We actually had a really positive year. We did over 25,000 inspections last year total.
So what do y'all do with all your fun time?
Well, you know, at least we get to sing along in the car as we drive to the next inspection.
If I may ask, within our industry, the education and the training within knowing our industry, what is all involved with either training at our facilities or at our level to find more understanding of what we do, more about? Is there more of that coming, or where there's kind of pre-inspections where trainers come out and can be in our facilities and see what we do and learn?
Well, you know, we work in conjunction. I know that Todd mentioned in his report that he along with our enforcement division, had provided training for a new crop of inspectors who had come in on this program. And so we really work in conjunction with the compliance division and the enforcement division to provide the training for the inspectors. If you're interested, though, in potentially more information for the licensees, then we of course have information on the website, but it may be something that we can work with you on. Yeah, we have, we can, you know, everything is available to you on the website, the law, the rules, the most common violations, so that people can know the kinds of things to watch out for. Is that?
Well, it's more along the lines of your new inspectors, of who comes in fresh on your end, learning all what we do, and also so many different businesses, but still.
Yes,
Us
yes.
being a newer one is kind of the indication of knowledge of really.
Yes, like I said, that's, you know, we don't just train one time, and especially for a program like this. Some of the programs that we do, we are performing inspections every day, day in, day out. You know, sometimes that's all they do for a barber or cosmetology inspection because the volume is so large. But we've got to work in and be available and understand these particular programs as well. So we don't just train them one time and then say we're done. We go back and revisit. We have just, you know, let's just revisit the laws and rules again to help them stay on point and to keep it fresh in their minds. Also, when we have new inspectors come in, we start out with one program, but we begin to add additional programs. And we really allow for 4 to 5 weeks for an inspector to learn a program, depending on how difficult it is.
The visits, the route and the planning, is it more along the lines of our licensed businesses, or more on the complaint side, or just both? Or?
That's an important distinction for TDLR. I think it may be different at some other state agencies. Our folks who are doing these inspections are inspecting licensed entities. They're not performing complaint investigations. We have our enforcement department they have investigators both here in Austin but also out in the field who perform investigations on complaints. Now, we will still go out if a license has been expired. We go out up to 18 months after expiration, and even then we'll call because it's possible that somebody's license has lapsed. So we still go out and do the inspection.
Anything else to add? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, I think we have licensing division. Next.
Good morning, my name is Laura Hernandez. I'm a licensing manager for the tools team with metal processing applications for used auto parts recyclers. I've submitted the statistics for fiscal year 2017. Populations, which stays the same because it really is too much. For the UAPR companies, there's no percentage for the online applications for renewal because those are not available to be done online or renewed online. Those are all paper applications. We process those all manually. If you have any questions about these statistics or anything about licensing, please feel free to ask.
How many, just out of curiosity, how many actually get declined? You know, kind of percentage wise, is it like 5%?
As, we don't really do the application denials as far as, do you mean like because of some kind of history or because they didn't meet the application requirements?
Right.
For us, we just pretty much do the application process as far as what's required. Permits, the insurance, everything like that.
Okay.
All the DPS background, criminal history, that goes to our enforcement division.
Okay.
So we wouldn't really have the statistics on our side. It would just be more what didn't meet the requirements for an application.
Okay.
So it would be more for an enforcement.
Thank you.
Are we eventually going to be able to do the company application online?
We haven't had any discussions to bring it up online. only because insurance can't be submitted online for the UAPR companies. Unlike our tow companies that can do online, they actually, the insurance companies have a login ID and password to actually enter the information. So for the UAPR companies, that's not feasible right now for us to get all those insurance companies to get logged in. So it's easier to just have it, that way we can process it all at the same time. Enter the insurance, enter the application, things like that. If the population was to grow, then we consider it.
Thank you, Laura, appreciate it. Okay, now we'll move on to our board discussion on House Bill 3131, Mr. Charles Johnson.
Chairman, board members, Charles Johnson, Assistant of Council. House Bill 3131 was placed on the agenda, and I think there was some concern and confusion as to whether or not the provisions in that bill apply to this program. We have reviewed House Bill 3131, and we believe that the proper interpretation of that statute, that it applies to DMV in the titling process, which is outside the scope of what we do here as a state agency. And so while there may be concern, I think that concern should be addressed at DMV in terms of what they're going to require and how they implement bridges in that house. If there's any other questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Well, I think it's spot on with what you're saying, because there's some things that we, and on our end, really want to address what happens with these vehicles when they do go in the shredder. So
Yes, sir.
I think there's a lot of concern on our end.
Long time no see.
I know, man. We appreciate it, Charles.
Thank you. And I'll stay for the next item as well.
That will be the discussion regarding which employees are required to have a license while working at used automotive recyclers center under the TA code, chapter 2309.
The department's interpretation of that particular provision is that any person who works at that facility, who is engaged in the sale of a part of a license. I think there's been some discussion as to whether or not a cashier is involved in that transaction. Well, we interpret the provision in a strictest sense, and we believe that cashier is in fact the last point of sale. And so that being the interpretation is being that cashier being the last point of sale, places that particular employee in the stream of selling parts, and we believe that person should also have a license.
I know in 08 and 09, the intent was to, a very small percentage, but we knew of some selling illegally parts, stolen parts, what have you, and felt like that's why the selling or the salespeople, like at my facility, they answer the phone, customer describes what items they want, and so at that point, if you have an unscrupulous salesperson, they may have an outside market which they could sell a stolen part to that person. Our thoughts, 8 to 9 years later down the road is there are facilities that are strictly self-service, meaning they're much like an HEB or Home Depot, where there are preset prices, and so the actual customer selects the items that they actually want, and so they're not actually involved in the process of taking the order or anything. They're just cashing out the customer as they come back through. So just wondering, like I say, we understand a full service, or even some facilities have dual where they do both. We understand that would be a slippery slope. But with facilities that are just strictly doing that, and all those people do, they're not answering phones, they're not, they're not answering questions as far as types of availability of parts and what have you. They're just strictly people bring it up in a cart or in hand what they're wanting to purchase and cash them out. It seems to be burdensome. Sometimes that position to be a high turnover for some of these facilities because they're kind of a lower level entry position.
Yes, sir, and I think that rationale would apply in the context of a different statute. The way the statute is written and the way it's been interpreted is that a sale is a transaction that involves steps along the way. And just because you limit some of the steps doesn't mean that the last point of sale is not that cashier. The cashier is the actual, if it's a self-service facility under the existing statute, the person who checks that person out is the last point of that sale. And so the license requirements would apply because it's within the scope of that person's employment. Where the statute and the rules are written refers to the scope of employment. And that point of sale is within that person's scope of employment. And fits the definition that we have interpreted the statute to implement. And so the license requirements would apply.
And I'm just asking, when you say statutes, are we talking about legislative statutes, or I thought these were adapted by rule or by TDLR, and I'm just asking?
Yes, sir. Give me 1 second. The statute refers to the sale, and you're correct, the rule refers to the scope of employment, so it is by rule.
Is done by rule
Yes,
then? Okay.
But that rule is based upon the interpretation of the statute. And so unless the statute changes, I think the interpretation would remain the same.
So, the way it kind of works at our facility, sometimes, a customer will come in, we do heavy duty truck parts, so it's 18-wheelers. Say they want the back end, the back tandem, so we'll cut the frame. So if you're looking at it that way, that the cashier is a point of the sale, does that mean then that our salesman asks the guy with holding the torch to cut the part, he should be licensed too? He's a part of the sale if you look at it that way.
Well, I think that the way the rule was written with the intent to identify those folks who are in the process, in that stream of selling. I don't think the cutter, that's all that person's doing is cutting. I don't think that falls within that stream.
So basically the person who deals with the customers.
I think that's a shorter way to look at it.
I think a lot of this, and again, we want to be compliant and follow the statute, but there's a lot of people within our facilities as well as everybody else. But we've got, just to give another example of her, is we've got a customer pickup window. We have a cashier, we have a parts puller, or a person out in the warehouse getting the part from the order, giving it to the customer. So I think a lot of this is where we want to really define who needs to be licensed when it comes to those type of people with the cashier. You kind of clarified the cashier part of it, but like you're saying with the guy who's cutting the car, and then we have another checkpoint to where we're giving the customer the part, and then the cashier that cashes them out. I think there's so much involved within our industry that we want to make sure we're complying on who has an employee license.
And I think the concern is well taken, and I would suggest that maybe not in the context of this meeting, because these issues, this is the first discussion we've had in a little detail, that maybe the board we want to establish a work group, a small subset of the board to meet with staff and talk these issues out, and to see if there's a process or a methodology that we can develop to try to identify those individuals. But the current interpretation and the way we understand the industry works today is that the point of the sales is a series of transactions that leading up to the final point of contact, which is the final point of sale, which is the cashier, which was the context that we were discussing the issue in for this agenda item. So you kind of listed a whole different set of people that may be involved in that transaction. And I think the better way to approach this would be to establish a work group, maybe over a series of several meetings, talk these issues out, and determine whether or not those folks are involved in that transaction.
Mary Winston, TDLR. Because this group hasn't met in a while, I just want to make you comfortable with work groups. Don't have to be in person. They can be over the phone. Charles is obviously requesting to lead those groups. I'm being sarcastic, but. Someone in the staff, will assist with that group. We'll make sure they're, as Mark has mentioned before, there are no quorum issues. But as Charles said, you have identified several members, that are involved somehow in this sale that, I mean, that's why you're here.
Right.
This is not our profession. We regulate, we issue the licenses, but we rely on you guys. So very astute, thank you for broadening our view of this, and apparently we need to kind of discuss. As it stands today, this is our interpretation, but for further discussion, thank you for your questions, and possibly looking at a work group to make us aware, make staff aware of the actual transaction.
Thank you. Absolutely. Charles, would thank you.
Thank you. And this will be my last presentation in front of you, because I'm glad we'll have this program going forward.
And with that, Mary Miss and Charles has passed the baton.
Well, Charles. Thanks, Charles.
Good to see you guys.
Would you like to, at this time, I don't know, Charles, before you give it up, I mean, do you want Mark to set up the work group, or would you like to help him with that since this is
We'll
third
coordinate,
day?
do the drift along with the plan.
Okay, thank you. Do we, let's, you know what, Chairman, can we kind of get, it can only be two of you.
Right, that's what I was fixing to bring up is the next
Thank you.
agenda, because I nominate myself first, and then I can open it up for you guys.
And so-
Do
and
we need to
this
know
is-
now, or?
Well, it would be great if you could get one more person. This is for the issue that we just brought up. This is a licensing work group, concerning the issues you just brought up and the interpretation of the current interpretation of 2309. Part of the discussion has revealed that, there's some sort of, there are other members in this transaction. We need to kind of flesh this out. So on H, we would like to continue that discussion via work group. And you and one other person of your choosing will coordinate with staff, and staff will contact you and get schedules and when we can call in, or however you guys want to handle it.
Will this work group just pertain to the 2309, or could we talk about the penalty matrix thing?
This will just be 2309, because this will be a different set of staff, actually, that handle this. For the enforcement, you have Mr. Shirk up there, and he's gonna just handle the enforcement penalty matrix piece. So in furtherance of the discussion in H, it would be the formulation of a work group. Who else would you like to be on
Bruce Orman and myself.
that? Okay, Tam, you got it? Okay. And staff will be contacting you, regarding time, and then next up, we have Mr. Shirk.
It's good to see you
Welcome
again.
back.
You know, when I was thinking back, guys, I remember some of the old cases from school. The ones that involved the automotive parts sellers were always the best ones, because they had everything from like a tap dog to wireless wiretap, or a warrantless wiretap. There's a whole range.
Not to inject into the brevity of the meeting, but we're off agenda.
Oh, okay, just let me explain. All right, so on item I, which is the appointment of an enforcement work group to deal with the penalty plan. I don't know if they're the penalty matrix or an enforcement plan. I don't know if you're familiar with the penalty matrix and enforcement plan. What it is, it's used to guide us, prosecutors, in assessing standard penalties and standard violations, so that a violation such as operating a business without a license or failing to maintain insurance, we would look at it and say, okay, first violation by that company or that individual, it's a class C or a class B. The enforcement matrix has violations A, B, C, D, and E. Within each one of those, we'll find specific violations of the rules or the statute. So, you know, A, hypothetically, might have lack of insurance, lack of registration, lack of employing a person who's not licensed as a used automotive parts recycling employee. So that would be our lowest penalty level. We look across and we say, well, that's X dollars. B would be the higher penalties for more severe infractions. C would be even higher for the most severe infractions of our rules. And it's you all that decide what are the most important infractions that you want to penalize at the highest levels. And this guides what prosecutors are allowed to do, so that we can't use our discretion. So that if we have two people on different sides of the state, they both engage in the same wrongdoing, they both get assessed the same penalty. That it gets rid of the prosecutorial discretion and informs the uniformity of assessment. And it also serves as a deterrent to people, knowing that if I engage in this conduct, I will be assessed this penalty. Now, we do have higher penalties for recidivist activity. Somebody who engages in a second or third violation, say for instance in a class B, the first violation would be a fixed penalty. The second violation might be a range of penalties from $1,000 to $3,000 based on a number of factors that we have to consider. The third violation will usually involve a sanction, not just a penalty, but a sanction such as the suspension of a license or the revocation of a license. So you can see we have a progressive graduated process which relies upon what you tell us to do in the penalty matrix or the enforcement plan. Have I done a decent job of informing you what the enforcement plan, what its purpose is, and how it works? And again, the most important part of it is to ensure absolute fairness and impartiality in the assessment of penalties when a violation has occurred. But the amount of penalties or sanctions reflects certain policy choices about how severe each violation is, and that's your job. So what we want to do is come back, revisit the enforcement plan or penalty matrix, we call them both, and reassess how much should be assessed for first, second, and third violation of each one of the violations that we're allowed to prosecute for. So what I'd like to ask is for the appointment of an enforcement work group in order to revisit the plan, working with staff, and then coming up with something that we present to the commission itself.
That's a two-member panel.
That's right.
Again, nominate myself, Byron, if he's being this one.
And you'll get to work with Ms. Ricardo as she comes in and develops subject matter expertise on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. No, you're good. Thank you. Very important. I think we have our work groups lined up. Line J on our agenda is next on recommendations for the next meeting. I had proposed a meeting in early 2018, so I don't know if that's the time to discuss the next time and date and agenda for the next meeting. So, and I'm assuming these work groups can fall before the next meeting where we can have those worked and then.
Right, staff will contact you and arrange something that's engaged with you guys.
So can we set the next, do we need to set the next date and time for the next meeting now, or can we do this later?
Either one, if you'd like to just do it now while you're all here. We have the week of April 9th through the 13th available. That meets with your,
And that's the earliest.
This will allow, Mary Winston again, we're coming up on holidays, and we have Christmas, which, we like staff to be able to take some of that time, and we don't want to impose on your holidays, and then we have Thanksgiving. The first of the year starts, we need to have these meetings with staff to discuss these two issues, 2309, as well as the penalty matrix, to have those work group meetings. And so an early April meeting will allow that time to have those meetings come to some sort of resolution and then present it to the full board.
They're good. Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. Depending on other board members. The 11th and 12th and 13th.
Midweek in April is good for us. That's a possibility.
Particular day work best?
The 11th, 12th, and 13th.
How about the 11th? Wednesday?
Agree with it?
The 9 o'clock start time, okay?
9 o'clock's good. Well, I think that concludes our meeting. If anybody has anything else? I want to thank you, TDLR. It's been a while, but very good information, lots to cover, and these work groups will be very beneficial. So, adjourn.
Thank you.